ladies and gentlemen, this a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today we have distinguished guest. It's Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much for having me on again. Welcome to my home this time.
Okay, it's wonderful to see you at home, and I'm looking forward to see your presentation from the recent tournament, which was won. You know who?
Yes, that's right. Although I'm going to show you two of his lost games. He
Okay,
was maybe beatable.
yeah. Remember, there was a book about the games that Robert Fischer lost. So I
Right.
think the title was "How to Beat Robert Fischer," something like
Had
that.
be Bobby Fischer by Berger.
So maybe there will be sometime a book "How to Beat Magnus Carlsen."
Yeah, the answer appears to be could tempt him into overreacting. Although it also looked to me like Carlson had a cold or fever online. I don't know. I don't want to start any
Mhm.
rumors, but it was. I did watch the last game live, so.
Mhm.
Um, but the tournament is set up with second chances, and actually Carlson didn't need a second chance. He won straight through the winners bracket, which is why Alireza Firouzja had to beat him twice. First time in the four-game final match, where the tournament would have been over if Carlson had won, and then in the two-game, what was technically losers bracket final, but that's only because both players had lost one game. So I'm going to be using a different interface this time.
Okay.
Um, so on the way to the final, though, Carlsen faced a challenge from the Belarusian prodigy
Yeah.
Denis Lazovic, who I think beat Hikaru in an early stage, and that attracted notice in the placement stage. So the tournament had multiple stages, and then had the standard double elimination rules. So in as long as you hadn't lost a match, so as long as you were still in the winners bracket, where everyone started, you played four-game matches of game 10 plus 2 rapid. Okay, and then if you lost, then you went into the losers bracket where you played two-game matches, also of game 10 plus 2 rapid, with a Armageddon game at the end to decide those. And so when Firouzja defeated Carlsen, with Firouzja having lost a match previously, that knocked Carlsen down to the um, losers bracket. But here is how Carlsen previously narrowly avoided being taken down to the losers bracket by Denis Lazovic, who jumped out to with a good start in this game where he defeated Carlsen as black. Carlsen did win two other games and drew the fourth game to win the match 2.5, 1.5, and stay in the top bracket. But here is Denis Lazovic, I would say, tempting Magnus Carlsen. Okay, so we play an opening that um, starts off really with active play for black. So Carlsen is intending to play his usual crouching, nettlesome, slow build-up type of game, and this what this really looks like through about 20 moves until Carlsen gets tempted to do something rash. So here we go. White is just taking a little bit of space and restricting the active look of black's pieces. Um, Lazovic challenges that, but white has latent play on the C file. And now this is a lose-lose proposition for black. If black trades, then white gets greater control of the center, and white still has much more pressure down the C file than black has against white's protected pawn on D3. But if black doesn't take the bishop, then white is able to take and damage black's pawn structure. So Lazovic chooses the latter option, now no longer has pressure against C7 on the C file, but has a weakness on B6 that white can eventually try to get to. So here we go, Carlsen creeping, trying to ooze the queen into B5 and maybe start putting pressure on black's queen side, plus white's bishop on g2 is really doing a lot more pressure-wise than black's bishop on e6. So Lazovic tries to reverse that, first by occupying the center, and second, by trying to probe some weak squares in white's position, including a square that may have been weakened by Carlsen's last move, which had the effect of trying to stop knight d4 in some lines, which would probe other white weaknesses. Okay, so Lazovic just plays normal pressure. Now white is going to try to bring more material onto the queen side. Here we go. Okay. So again, white has a preponderance of one pawn in the center as a result of black's useless double b pawns. So white has to regroup, had to retreat the queen, and Lazovic advances the double pawn, hoping to trade it off and restore the semblance of a majority. And here we go. Okay, so now this is where Carlsen was tricked. So black is not going to capture with the pawn, which would cause, again, the double pawns. Okay, not going to capture with the queen, because that would hang the e5 pawn. But instead has this Zwischenzug. And this Zwischenzug prompted Carlsen to do something rash. Now I have an ancient engine here. Let's see what it thinks about the game. Well, it actually likes Carlsen's move. What do you know? I didn't go over this game with the engine. This is an old engine by Thomas Gatch that I use. Let me put it up to 4 moves and see what the engine might have liked. Actually, it's not liking any other move for white.
Yeah, if the exchange sacrifice doesn't work here, white's just bad.
Yeah, I'd say white's just bad. Yeah, so Carlsen got tricked here. Yeah, I'll agree. As a stand, this I wasn't looking at you. Great.
Also, weakness on g3 is very important in the resulting position. After you could sacrifice exchange.
Yeah, I guess that's why. In fact, I'm not getting any other lines appearing. Okay, so Carlsen sacrifices the exchange, and as the engine was showing, it's no better than equal. So white does have 2 pawns for the exchange, but I think very crucially here, this would be a lot better for white if we could put an extra pair of rooks on a1 and a8. Then I think white would have full compensation. But white is going to have trouble defending the back rank if and when black is able to open lines, and that is exactly what Denis Lazovic knows to try to start doing. Okay, so all right, so the other aspect of white's compensation is you'll get this beautiful knight on c4, but black is coming a different way. So we got the knight on c4, but now you've lost one of your pawns of compensation, and you have to shore up. And now, I don't know how much time Lazovic had at this point, but black plays some really artful moves, probing white's back rank. Here we go. We start by bringing in the knight. And now we're pressuring f2, which white has to defend. And now this very pretty move, knight to c1. The rook is going to land on d1 if white's not careful. So white has to actually counterattack to prevent that. And black has to bring the queen. So now we've gotten rid of d1, and Carlsen wants to do this. Now the problem is white's knight is hanging, and there's other trouble if black still could come with rook d1. So in fact, the essence of what's happened is that this sequence of moves is backfired for white, and white has to give up a piece. Now black is a rook ahead. White has a little diversion with the pawns, and for a little while, it looks like white's going to be able to promote on e8, a8, and win some material back. So white would love to be able to play bishop g2, but it's not happening with rook queen d1 check. So anyway, queen b5, sort of desperate attempt to get queen b8 check happening. Black just falls back to defend that. Now black is perfectly able, is very happy to give up the knight for the a7 pawn. White tries to put pressure on f7, but lo and behold, black doesn't have to defend it. Black's king just scoots away. And now black actually has a passed pawn to do stuff with. And once black organizes his pieces, white can give up. Okay, this looks like a mate threat. It's not. So eventually, black corralled all of white's army, and Carlsen resigned. Okay, so very enterprising play by Lazovic, but as I should say, Carlsen did strike back and win that match.
This impression of this game is that the black player was at least a couple of hundred points higher rated than the white.
Yeah. These are rapid ratings, or chess.com rapid ratings, I guess, showing on the PGN game score, because I'm using a file from chess.com. But you're right, Lazovic at FIDE. Oh, I don't have his thing shown. I forget what he is, but he's making a name for himself in a few tournaments. So he's going to, I think, soon enter the 2700.
And the quality of the games also in his favor.
Yeah.
Very high quality games.
Yep. So, but there is another prodigy. Yeah, he's only 17. But there's another slightly older prodigy who Carlsen. He's only 2567 on the standard list. But he's had some results that are pointing toward better play than that. Well, the older prodigy is Alireza Firouzja, whom Carlsen anointed as possibly a successor, would play a championship match against him, and they had quite a tussle because Firouzja actually defeated Carlsen in the 4-game match, and this game was largely responsible for that. Again, Firouzja is black, so how do you defeat Carlsen as black? Okay, well, there is one way you can defeat Carlsen as black. You can take a pawn when Carlsen gives it to you. So this knight c3 move deserves a dubious or interesting marker. And I should say, by the way, that I originally read this game by looking at the analysis of my friend Dennis Monocrusos at the Chess Mind. So this is his analysis of the game. Wrong game. So this game. So this is his analysis of the game, and he gives knight c3 a curious thing. Well, of course, the line is very well known. So I subscribe to this. Dennis often has very good annotations, also with attention to engine evaluations to check his work. Okay. Now I'm going to say something about the accuracy level. Okay. So you can win against Carlsen by taking a pawn and holding on to it, maybe. Okay, so let's see now. This is obviously a known line, and we're going to get a little bit of firecracker tactics in the center. First, white plays d5, and then white plays e5. And black does not move the knight away, else white would crash through on the d file. Black attacks white's knight back so that knight takes d5 would cause a trade of knights. Instead, the trade of knights would happen this way, except that now black has sacrificed a piece. So the way to beat Magnus Carlsen is to give away a piece and make Carlsen stick his knight on a bad square. Well, black has 3 pawns for the piece and a fairly imposing center. So the whole question is whether white's active minors can dominate, get pieces in the center, and push back the advance of black's armies. So now this, by the way, is a notice from Tyler Cowen's Marginal Revolution blog. So I will have to read that. I could talk about neural engines and chess level. So anyway, so white now allows his knight to be taken, which could result in the loss of a 4th pawn. On the other hand, white now has 2 bishops, and if they can get hold of the center, black will be in very bad way. Plus, as Dennis Monacrusos observes, it's weird that white has a better passed pawn than any of black's pawns.
Ken, this is the kind of position where I like to say, this is a game that I can lose comfortably from either side.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, definitely a 3-result position. So let's see how they duke it out. Well, there we go. White is a good center square. Black is a solid center, and here comes black's army marching forward. White gets the c6 square, which usually for its knight, c6 square is a winning positional achievement, but white doesn't have any quick visual follow-up to that knight. In fact, all white does with it is trade pawns. So we restore black having 3 extra pawns, but at least now there's no invasion on the queen side. And white tries to get his other bishop to control the center, but now black's knight is heading for some very crunchy squares. So at this point, for a long time, the engines do show rough parity in this position. Okay, so Toga too, that ancient engine, has white just very slightly ahead. Okay. Anyway, okay, so white is probing for an attack. So this is another aspect about the position, especially with black's knight over on the queen side. White could potentially drum up a kingside attack. Say a bishop sacrifice in d5 would allow white's knight to join the fray. So black can't let his dark squares get too weak. So instead, black sheds a pawn, but wins back the knight. And so now we have white regaining pawns. So there's, again, rough parity in this position. And so the Toga engine says that white actually shouldn't have gone for this a few ways back and should have just put the rook on a3 and kept the material. Now, it's, again, very close to 0-0-0 here. We should get trades as black is able to fend off white's attack. So here we go. And now the real dynamic of the position is black is up a pawn, but the pawns are loose, and black's king is also loose. White, the combination of those two should enable white to win back his material. But I am going to keep the engine on for this because there's a lot of tactics going on here. So now black now is threatening to attack white. Queen f1 check and queen takes f2 check is a real threat. So queen a7 defending the pawn from afar and keeping white's threats. But now black is able to centralize the queen. So you see that the players are following decent moves. Now here is where Carlsen could have repeated the position. And maybe Firouzja was repeating to gain a few seconds on increment too. So you don't know. Queen a7 check, king h6, queen c5 could have happened. But instead, Carlsen put the queen aside. And that comes with its risk. And here, Firouzja played a very enterprising move. a3, now I have a passed pawn on the 6th rank. And you still equal according to the engine, but you have to defend very carefully. And this is also clear in Monacrusos'. So this is a little slip, and now comes big slip. No, not right here. Next move. So now, let's see, queen f8 check, king h5. Oh yeah. So it turns out white has to desperado here in order to keep the evenness of the game. White instead did this, which is threatening mate on h7, but black is just able to close up the castle gate, and now white has no more attack. And Carlsen played here and resigned. So the game hinged on one move, probably while they were very short of time. Let me just go to Dennis's annotations here, putting white to the test. And by the way, it does say that both players played very accurately. Queen f8 check is a little slip, and then white is only one way to stay alive. And and white's only way to keep equality was a desperado, with the idea being that you can come back here, and that's going to change the disposition of black's pieces. Okay, well, you have to play queen f3 check, king f5, and then queen c5. Yes, star move. Black has no checks, setting up a discovery. And in fact, black, in order to have his king be safe, has to give away the pawn and be able to play the queen there. And then this is an equal position, according to Dennis. So anyway, enterprising play.
Very much so.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I can let Dan get a word in edgewise before showing my third, the final game of the match, an intended game.
Great.
So let me pause
Yeah,
and say hello to Dan.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Great.
I had
Great.
travel early in the week and a class that ran late this morning, and I'm just enjoying the games. Those were real. That second game that is most of that game was correspondence quality. I've had some games that evolved somewhat similarly to that in recent tournaments. You know, those are the types of positions that where both sides have dynamic chances, where you've got deep calculations required. Those are really fun to play and fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a good, you mentioned correspondence quality,
Right.
because I think soon there will be a new terminology, a cheater's quality.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yes and no.
There is that.
There is that. And needless to say, I was monitoring that tournament, though not officially, just for my own sake of seeing, how accurate my work is for an unusual rapid time control game. What I count as game 12 rapid. But okay, back to
it's kind of like fast rapid.
Right. But now I've come with a different axis to grind here. So I'm actually going to complain about rapid chess in this second game that I'm going to show, where let's see, I don't want to save it. Let's see, just make sure this is the game that I have in mind. Yes, it is. Okay. So this is a game where I think this would have been a much better game at classical chess than at rapid chess. Let me turn off the engine for a moment. Carlsen won the first game as white. So Firouzja needs to win on demand on white to send the ultra final to Armageddon. And Firouzja has the white pieces, and we play the usual gioco piano active chances for white kind of game. This time an early bishop g5 rather than playing c3 and knight d2 and not committing white's dark.
This is the old canal variation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you might call it the root canal variation a little bit because of how white struggles to pro black. I'll make that joke in a few moves when it comes to it. So black actually also here, there's no bishop on c5, so it makes sense, I think, for black to play a5 rather than a6 in this position. So both players castle, and now, so I don't know. So g6, I guess, prophylaxis against white's natural plan of sinking a knight on the b5 square. H3 to make luft for white's pieces. The h2 square might be used in some cases. And now white plays the knight to c3, so not d2, f1, e3, but white, of course, goes b5 and d5 to I. And now white starts probing black. Okay, so now this, of course, invites the g5 move. And let me just see what happens to black. So my engine does say that white has, this old engine does say that white has a bit of an advantage. Does think that black should reply g5. And let's just see how bad is this caveman type play. It doesn't say it's too bad. So maybe there's some reason to fear white doing this kind of everybody go to the kingside attack. Okay, so Toga, old engine, I'm not going to give it points for depth, does say that this is a reasonable reply by white, as well as simply retreating the bishop, and then maybe the weakness on f5 and the possibility of white playing h4 is going to be significant. But okay, Carlsen kept his position intact rather than play g5. So now white probes black again. Black says, okay, I'm just going to oppose this. And now what happens next is really very interesting. White converts the activity into a static advantage. Okay. So now finally, even with the heat being thrown off by the capture on d5, Carlsen gets lured into playing g5. And now, before white's bishop on d5 can be taken by the unpinned knight, white gets a static advantage on the queen side with black's pawns being doubled. However, white's bishop on g3 is well and truly buried. And white doesn't have an easy way to exploit the f5 square, because white's knight on f3 is going to take 4 moves to get there. Okay, so black gets activity, and now the question is whether black can expand on the king side. So white doesn't want the bishop to be taken on g3, although that'll happen later in the game. And now attack on the king side should be met by action in the center. So here we go. An exchange of pawns would also open the c file for white. So black starts again loading more stuff on the center. But now white has an open d file to work with and squares on the queen side that black cannot oppose. So it's a question of how will black be able to drum something up on the king side or react to white's probing of these weak pawns. And let's see, in fact, just so the engine does give white a quite substantial advantage at this point. Thinks that black should strike with g4 right away. Oh, no, actually, yeah, vacillating, I guess, regarding this pawn and striking right away. But Carlsen did neither. Carlsen brought the bishop to the good diagonal and simply jettisoned the pawn. So white took a pawn. We're a pawn ahead. Now Carlsen begins his attack. But Firouzja is able to sidestep that. And now king h1, another good move, unpinning the f-pawn so that g3 doesn't do anything. Now probe the f-pawn, and here we go, bishop g3, and it gets taken. Okay, so anyway, so now the question is to black, you can't attack on the h-file because I supported my pawn on g3. I've got on h4, got a weak pawn on g3. Can you attack it? Well, start doing this, but and this is important because if white moves the queen, then black is going to get more tempi and clash 2 on g3. So he has to take this. But now, here is where I should be hiding the screen. Here is where I think Carlsen played a move that really justifies his super grandmaster, his world champion status. Okay, because he did not play the obvious bishop takes g3 move.
Maybe h5?
Well, h5 is one thing. But actually, so the real question to ask yourself is, what is black's realistic hope for counterplay in this position? What asset does black have?
Well, he needs open lines for his rooks.
Yeah, so you're right. So you could play rook d8 and rook d2, but then what's the rook on d2 doing?
Rook g3, maybe.
Rook d3, yeah, okay. So you take a couple pawns, and white pushes the a pawn.
But I mean,
again,
maybe you've got to play like c5 prophylactically, plus otherwise it just drops.
Yeah, well, c5 again. If I'm queening the a pawn with my knight on c6,
Yeah.
what good is that?
That's probably
So black does have a passed pawn in this position. And that's
Oh,
his
maybe
chief
F5.
action.
F5?
F5. That is
No
correct.
way.
So Carlsen spent about a minute on that because I was watching this game and he was running short of time. So I was really, no way is right. That would be your reaction, giving away another pawn. But in fact, pushing the E pawn, not taking on G3, is White's key aspect of counterplay. So let's see if my old engine will say this. No, old engine says that Black should play bishop takes G3, grab a pawn, and hope to survive. Okay, but grab at H4, you win 2 pawns back, but this engine just isn't seeing enough of the horizon that White is going to push the A pawn and win. So this is the other thing. White does have objectively an advantage. So I'll play Carlsen's move, and now, okay, so the Val has only gone up about 3/10 of a pawn, if that. Okay. But this is a challenging move, first of all. Now, but here I'm going to get on my hobby horse about the thing of rapid chess. Firouzja, up to this point, has really played a great game. Okay, he's carried the fight to Carlsen in the center. He provoked a concession on C6. He then maneuvered to exploit it adroitly. So in classical chess, I would expect White to win, and this really should be White's game. But Firouzja in the game fell apart in just 7 moves. Okay.
I mean, Carlsen obviously knows what he's doing. I mean, after F5, White's better, but Black's easier.
Yeah, I guess you're
Black's
right.
plan is super simple here.
Well, actually, the one thing is you could play thematically and play Rook F1.
Right.
And now after this, there's no pass pawn anymore. Whoops. Uh-oh. There are some bugs in the arena interface.
Yeah.
In fact,
Drop the rook into the ether.
Yes, I think that's right. So I may have to reload this position.
Sure.
Yeah, that's rather funny. Okay. I have had things like this happen. But Firouzja said, okay, I'm going to ignore this at his peril. Now, maybe B4 is objectively the right move because we still have a good eval, but Carlsen is playing like Carlsen. And Carlsen, in fact, doesn't do the expected. Mm-hmm. He leaves the lever on E4 in place. Now, because I guess if Rook F1, I wonder is Rook at D2 playable? Yeah, Rook D2 is playable and is the best move. Toga was having a hash collision or something. Now, White is not going to be able to get the rook to the F5 square. So, so Rook D8, again, another star move, not doing what's expected. And now, so we take this and Black plays Rook D6 and B5. Okay, so all according to Hoyle, White still has a definite advantage. And Rook B4, E3. And now here is where Firouz just saw a ghost with his clock winding down. Okay, but it must also say that Toga, the deeper Toga looks, the less advantage Toga is seeing for White, which is again why one sees ghosts.
I mean, I probably play Rook E4 here. Is that what he played, or
that's what he played? It's a losing move.
Wow.
So you would not have taken the pawn.
No.
I guess because you're
I would have
afraid
been
of
so
giving
scared
Black.
about I would have seen the same ghost. It's like that pawn on, but I don't know what the rook. Yeah, I would have played Rook E4.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have to take the pawn. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So the ghost that I saw is that Black could play King F7, and then when you go Rook E4, Rook E4 play King F6. And now your rook on E4 is starting to be squeezed, and Black is defending E5. Okay, now I thought I would respond to this ghost by playing G4. So G4 is in fact an okay move, stopping Black's king from getting F5. But apparently Rook F1 is even better.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So why is it better? My rook on E4 is trapped because the bishop's pinned. There you go. But in rapid chess, maybe you don't see diagonals and pins well enough. So after Rook G4 check, Black would probably play king h7. Okay, and then when white plays rook e4, why is this now better for white than in the game? This is inquiring minds want to know, because in the game with black's pawn on g4, it was just lost. So well, let's see the corresponding position. Well, white played rook e4, rook d2, rook f1, and then it was after rook f8. Actually, rook f8. That white is now lost. So king h2, e2, and Firouzja resigned. Because black is crashing through. Now, curious to see what it is about the other variation with black's king on h7, rook e4, rook d2, rook f1. I'll play rook f8 for black. Because the king is not defending the rook, and you've just lost a pawn. So the key point, the key fact of rook g4 check isn't winning a pawn. It's diverting black from the protection of the rook on f8. Okay. So like I said, points like this would be fairly routinely seen in classical chess. But in this faster form of rapid, Carlsen was more on the ball and played the simple moves and prevailed, whereas white had more choices, more onus of difficulty of seeing, and Firouzja stumbled and lost. So
very, very interesting games. And I saw all those games in real time when they played them, and yet it's so interesting to see them again, and especially with your commentaries and Dan, your input, and of course looking at this program that gives all kind of intricacies and very valuable variations of the game. Ken, I have a question. They played in the final 6 games. So wouldn't it be better to have one match, 6 games instead?
Well, you have to give advantage to the person who hasn't lost. See, Carlsen had not lost, whereas Firouzja had lost a match to someone else. So that's why you make it 2 matches, and the player in the winner's bracket only has to win 1.
Very, very interesting. There are so many nuances. It's not so simple. So people who just all of a sudden started to watch these tournaments and they don't know the history, why it's done this way or so on, they sometimes have difficulties to comprehend why there are 2 matches. Apparently, now we have an answer. Well,
sometimes I don't even know how they're adding up the points in some of the tournaments now, where you get like bonus points for winning and things like that. So it can indeed be quite confusing for spectators.
Yeah, they have to probably in their commentaries, they have to spend a little bit more time explaining the merits of this system and how it works or so on. So it would be more interesting to watch the games, so to know how much result of each game affects the overall standing. If you would know how it's calculated and how it's all done. Well, in any case, we have to get used to it, because these tournaments are going to continue for some time, and so it's better to try to learn the whole intricacies of the system. In any case, thank you so much for showing these games and reflecting on your comments. And looking forward to see you next week, same place, same time.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, and good to see you again, Dan. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.